Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Poet Speaks podcast. All right, and today we have a very special guest. Our next guest is a poet, short story writer, novelist, essayist, performer, and artist. Her numerous awards include an NEA Fellowship in both poetry and fiction, a MacArthur Fellowship, National International Book Awards, including the PEN American Literary Award and the National Medal of Arts. More recently, she received the Ford Foundation's Art of Change Fellowship and was recognized with the Fuller Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature, and won the PEN Nabokov Award for the Achievement in International Literature. She makes her living by the pen. Everyone, welcome to the podcast, Sandra Cisneros. Sandra, how are you?
I feel great after that intro because it just makes me sound brilliant. But you don't know all the failures I had that I had to pick myself up from. So when I hear all that, say, that me? Could that be me?
It definitely is you. And I just want to tell you, I've been a fan of your work for the past 20 years, since I was about 7. House on Mango Street was one of my favorite books in school. So it's an absolute privilege to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much. So I want to get straight into it. Tell us, where are you currently at in the world right now? I'm really curious about your location. Where are you currently talking to us out of?
You will. Okay, you have to as well.
Okay, I will.
Speaking to you from San Miguel, St. Michael, San Miguel de Allende in the state of Guanajuato, which is in Mexico. And the central part of Mexico is like a horn of plenty. And it's inland, like in between Guadalajara and Mexico City, 4 hours northwest of Mexico City in a high desert region. And this is where I live. I've lived here for the last 9 years. I can't believe it's been 9 years. And where are you speaking from?
Well, currently right now I'm speaking from Japan. So I'm all the way in Japan. So we are a bit of continents away, but we're having this amazing conversation. So I appreciate you asking me too. I really do appreciate that.
Well, I don't know. It's just incredible, isn't it, that we can do this, that we can gather, and had to get up. What time did you have to get up to talk to me today?
I mean, just around like 5 a.m., just around 5 a.m. No worries.
Oh, man, that's hard. That's hard. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No worries, no worries. So you know what? I want to get straight into it. You've had such an amazing literary career in every single aspect. I want to get into, tell us a bit about, I always am curious, writers, where your positionality comes from. Tell us a bit about your background, your childhood, for the folks that don't know.
All right. Well, I think one of the things that makes me me is I was raised in Chicago, the only daughter of an upholsterer, a man who was a Mexican immigrant, and a Mexican American mother. 2 very different classes. My mother's working class, my father was middle class, and he emigrated to the United States during World War II, served in the Army, and became a U.S. citizen. My mother's people come from the region where I live now, and they were campesinos, country people who were pushed out of Mexico, just like what's happening in the Ukraine right now, through circumstances that were not their choice. The victims of history, the Mexican Revolution came into this region and would burn down your house if you didn't enlist, and would steal your women and steal your chickens and anything that could be stolen. And this was all these factions that were fighting. It wasn't like the good guys and the bad guys. It was your cousin might be fighting against you. So my grandfather took the route north, and at that time you could just cross, and he worked on the railroad and eventually wound up in Chicago, brought my mother's family. And that's why my mother was born in Chicago, where I was born too. And I think that this is an important part of who I am. I like to always explain that I grew up witnessing 2 different communities. My father's Mexican, my mother's Mexican American. My father's city, my mother's country. And so I saw a lot of fighting and feuding and wars go on. I learned from both of them. From my mom, the kind of activism, and from my dad, the customs and the culture of Mexico, which my mother didn't know until she met him. So I feel like I got a lot from both of them. They make me who I am. They make me what I write about. And I always felt very proud to be Mexican because, when the way I grew up, I felt sorry for you if you weren't Mexican. I just thought everybody would want to be Mexican. It's so great. That's pyramids, and we have good food, and we have art of the street, and so much culture. And, to me, it was like a poverty when I came back to Chicago. But when we would visit my grandparents in Mexico, everything was so rich and beautiful. And so I felt at home. So I have to bring all this up. It's what makes me feel like I am neither from North America or from the America south of the Rio Grande, that I feel like all my ancestors come from all the way up, all the way down. I feel like I'm a product of Las Americas. But I also have to admit I have DNA from my dad's side of the family, and they are more European and Arabic, and that whole confluence of southern Spain, that is the Arabic, Jewish, and European cultures. That's all me, and I identify and have to recognize all of them.
So you come from a intersectional mix. You have so many different influences kind of garnering into who you are today. So
Exactly. So I can't think of myself like within, like, borders are meaningless. When you do
yeah.
your DNA, borders are meaningless, and you realize, oh, I'm more than an amphibian, because I used to say I'm an amphibian, but I think we're more than that. For those of us who do our DNA, we realize we have wings. We go across cultures and countries, and the more you learn about your past and your ancestors and who you are, you really feel connected to everybody in the world. And that's where I am now at this time in my life.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can definitely resonate with that. So it's very interesting. Your work explores that. Absolutely. Like you in your work, you explore the challenges of being caught between Mexico and Anglo-American cultures, facing whatever may have you, misogynistic attitudes present in both cultures. So tell us a little bit how your cultural identity, as you talked a little bit about right now, how has that really affected your writing? How has that really been put into your writing?
Well, I don't really think about it. It's not like, I sit down and say, oh, I'm going to write about being a Mexican woman. I'm going to be a Mexican American woman living in Mexico. I don't think when I write, especially when I write poetry. Poetry comes from the heart. It doesn't come from my head. So I'm not thinking about those things. That's who I am. Yes. But I don't have to sit there and analyze myself as much as I feel I'm a witness, and I write about what I witness and what strikes the heart. And I feel our hearts are like these big Buddha bells, and just gong, and that's, just being a witness to things that I see. We have this special vision when you think about what makes you different from any other poet. So of course I'm looking at, the working class people, the poor people. Of course I'm looking at women. Of course I'm looking at Mexican people. Of course I'm looking at immigrants. I'm looking at girls. Those are all parts of who I am. So I feel like all of that is in who I am. I don't have to think about it. It's more that I have to be in touch with my heart when I write and serve as a witness, and I try.
I like that concept, serving as a witness. So you feel like
Yes.
you serve as a witness to reality, and as a poet, as a writer, you feel like it's your job to maybe just write those things down, witnessing
Well,
reality.
in another time, Amanda, we would have been the visionaries of our communities. I think we are the visionaries of our communities, but maybe we don't know it. The older that I become, I realize, the poets are the visionaries. That's why they're so sensitive. That's why they can see things before anyone else can. And in other societies, we might have been guiding communities. And I still think we have that role of guiding our communities and feeling things so deeply. We feel things deeper than anyone else in our family. You probably had I don't know about you, but in my family, they all thought I was weird because I cried so much when I was a kid. I got so sad about a lost dog. Everything affected me too much. And I'm still the crybaby. I still worry about the lost dogs or the lost children or the people that are getting locked up or the guy who killed 30 people and tried to kill himself. I think, what was going on in his heart? So all of that affects me very deeply. And it's our job as poets to feel deeply and to translate those emotions for people who don't have time to do the sitting meditation of transforming those emotions into language. That's the gift we have for the word workers. And once we translate that, it's like, that's it. Other people say, yeah, that's it. That's what I was feeling, that little pebble in my shoe. That's it. And that's why I say we're witnesses. We're that's our job.
Absolutely. I love that a lot. I feel like, I remember there's a line in a poem that I loved. It's by a New York poet. I'm forgetting his name, but I remember he said in a line during an open mic, he was like, as poets, we can turn, with our words, we can turn girls and boys into women and men. I mean, call soldiers to war. We can change a whole nation with our words, with our pens. And I think that's such an important part, because I, like you said, I remember growing up, yeah, I felt like I felt a lot of things, inarticulate emotions, being able to articulate them is just what we can really do as poets. And I do remember having that experience as a child, and people be like, wow, why are you feeling so much? What's going on here? Why do you care so much? You know what I mean?
Can't,
You can't.
it's really
Exactly.
hard. I tell people now that I'm older and in my 60s, I know now, okay, I can't deal with certain things. I don't have to do things like everybody else because I'm not like everybody else. It's a special gift. It's a blessing. It's a curse sometimes to feel things so deeply. And when I was a child, I didn't know how to handle it. And now I know how to protect it and to nurture it and to listen and to have my antenna out there so that when I feel things, and I feel, especially now, we're living in such a torn world, and I'm gathering that from the book I'm reading by the Japanese poet Kamono Chamai from the 13th century poet. He wrote this book called Hojoki, Visions of a Torn World. And I love reading this right now because he served as a witness. And I feel we're living in these times of great tumult, this great unrest. We're witnessing so much pain and and joy. We have to remember that. We have to put things in balance, and we have to name it. We have to call it forth. That's our job.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to quickly touch on, you talked about your childhood, feeling all these different emotions. When you were younger, did you have support, being a poet, being a writer? Did you have support from family?
No, in fact, I kept it a secret. I had 6 brothers, and their job was to make me cry. So I definitely had to keep it a secret. Anything that was valuable, I had to keep a secret. If you live with 6 boys, it's hard. And I was in the middle. My mom also had so much work, so she couldn't be there to listen to me. And even when she did, she thought I was just silly. But my father and I were twin souls, and he just worked so much, that he was the one that when he wasn't that tired, that he could listen to me, but he was a hard worker. So I basically, I think that's why I became a poet. I started it with poetry because I saw things, even though I lived in these dangerous neighborhoods cops were afraid to come into, there was such beauty there. Everybody can look up and see the sky. The clouds are free. The sunsets and the sunrises are there for you to uplift you and to remind you all this will pass. So, every time I saw something beautiful that was beyond what I could express in language, I would try to write in a little ring binder or a little spiral notebook poems about the wind, about the sunset, about trees, about nature, but I didn't show it to anyone. I don't think anyone actually knew I wrote poetry till I was in high school.
Geez, wow, wow, wow. That's really amazing to hear. Yeah, a lot of us end up being closet poets for years just because it may be difficult to translate that and communicate that. I want to move on a little bit. Let's go a little farther into your career. You've achieved recognition far beyond the Chicano and Latino communities to the extent that The House on Mango Street, your very famous novel, has been translated worldwide and it's taught in US classrooms as a coming of age novel. I want you to tell us a little bit about what that novel has meant to you, House on Mango Street, the impact it has had, and did you ever think it would become just a staple in USA and global literature?
No, when I wrote that, I was a teacher at an alternative school making minimum wage and working part-time in the beginning. And I wrote it from someplace, a powerlessness. I had begun it a couple of years before and then continued it and shaped it with my students when I was a high school teacher with high school dropouts, really older kids who were coming back, kids who had been in gangs, kids who were avoiding gangs, women who were mothers before they were old enough to mother themselves. So, I had students with incredible stories that I wove into the book. And more than anything, I just felt completely impotent as a teacher, as many teachers do. When, you're poor school and your students are leading disastrous lives. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I just wrote so that I could keep my spirit going for the next day. That was that, facing the dust. But one of the things that House taught me was whatever you make, con puro amor, with pure love, and amor puro, and with no personal agenda, that's done with pure love, con puro amor y amor puro, siempre sale bonito. It's always going to turn out well when we do work on behalf of those we love without a personal agenda. That's just a law of the universe. And I didn't learn that when I was writing it. I learned it like 10 years after it got published. And I started seeing all this success and how it was changing people's lives. And I thought, oh, that's the secret of the universe that book taught me. Whatever we make on behalf of those we love with no personal agenda, siempre sale bonito. It always turns out well.
Wow. Amazing. That's amazing. For you, so the success of the novel, House on Mango Street, for you, you said just right there, 10 years later is when you kind of saw that kind of roller coaster. When for you did the book kind of hit, I guess? When did it really when did you realize oh my goodness, what I just wrote has really translated globally like this? Was it 10 years? So 10 years later?
Yeah, I started it when I was 21, 22, finished it when I was 28, published it when I was 30, and started seeing its reverberations and its global effects when I was 40. So you have to remember, when you're working on a project, it's just like a small business. You got to hang in there. It's a marathon run. I didn't see it while I was writing it. And it took another 10 years. So like 20 years after I began it, before I started to see the spiritual work, because I really do feel it's a spiritual book and it's doing spiritual work. And the best definition of that work, not connecting it to any religion, but a sacred work that is doing a healing and making change. And I think, I think because I did it with no expectation for fame or money, and I did it with pure love, con puro amor y amor puro. When we do anything from our hearts with pure love, and you can just think, how can I honor others instead of honoring yourself? That's when you do great work, and might not bring you what you expected, but it will bring you something better.
Absolutely. I'm so curious though, you know what, when you find out that your book is now circulating a staple in USA classrooms, like required reading, like I said, when I started this podcast, that was our required reading when I was in middle school. I mean, I still remember.
Where were you in middle school? Tell me where in the world.
Yeah, so I went to a middle school, Harriet G. Eddy Middle School, got to get the full name, Harriet G. Eddy Middle School in Elk Grove, California. And that's where I read the book. Absolutely. That's why I read the book. And I remember being required reading seventh grade. And I still remember
Wow.
it. Absolutely. I still remember us discussing all your work. I remember the teacher asking, what do you think Cisneros, what was her viewpoint when she, with this vigilante story?
I wish they wouldn't ask that question. You know what I wish they would ask?
What do you wish
like the story? What do you remember? And why do you remember? Did you take notes? I don't think so. Why does a story stay with us? How does it nourish us? Did you have fun? They should ask those questions. That's what I would ask.
Absolutely. But you know what? I think that's such an interesting and powerful tool though, when you really think about the effect that your book has had, even from a girl all the way in Elk Grove, California, it's still 20 years later, the story still has effect on me. So absolutely. I mean, congratulations. I mean, that novel, more than anything, is such a...
And I'm the most surprised because, I was so broke for 20 years that I was working. The 20 years I was working, since I started writing professionally, which was at 21, I was so broke. I always had a couple of jobs, a day job. I never expected to earn anything from my writing. So I'm still the most astonished. And even now at 67, when I go to bed, I think, wow, who could have invented this life? Not me. I couldn't even my imagination is not creative enough to have imagined the life I'm living. I still feel like and I'm sure you do too, that you're living your life and you're watching yourself live your life. Because I think that's the schizophrenia of being a writer. We live our life and we watch ourselves living the life, and we're translating sometimes in the third person, like Esperanza did. And, I grew up like that, always like, narrating what my mother was saying to me. She would say something and I would add in my head, she said, and then, I would, I was living like this storybook, and I still am. I still watch myself, and I'm astonished to be talking to you from Mexico to Japan, and to be talking about Chumai's visions of a torn world. All these things are so amazing to me because, as writers, the older I get, the less I want to come out of my house. Especially pandemic is no sacrifice for writers, because we're constantly living in lockdown, right? We like being in lockdown.
Yeah.
And I have to say, to have this conversation across nations is fabulous. And I'm sure that people are listening from other parts of the world. It's like now we have those wings to fly across borders and have these conversations with communities across the globe. And it's absolutely necessary at this time, because there's so much work that needs to be done. And who's going to do it if not the poets? Because they're the truth tellers, and everybody else is, caught up in fake news or putting slants on things. And you're not telling the truth, you're not writing poetry.
Absolutely. I love that.
That's why we need poets in this torn world that we're living in. This is the truth tellers. The opposite of a politician is a poet. The poets are here to help guide us and illuminate our path especially during difficult periods of transition like the one we're experiencing now.
Absolutely. I love that. The opposite of a politician is a poet. That is the first time I've ever heard that in my life. I like that a lot. Tell the truth.
The politicians have to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Poets will tell you the truth, and you may not want to hear what they have to say, but they're telling you a truth.
Absolutely. So, I want to talk a little bit more about, so you've been the recipient, as I said in your intro, numerous awards, National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, awarded one of 25 Newford Foundation Art of Change Fellowships in 2017, and you are regarded as a key figure in literature. I mean, really, what do those accolades truly mean to you? I know we talked a little bit about that schizophrenic, almost of a writer mentality. You view things from the third person. What do those accolades, though, truly mean to you, especially now at this point in your career?
All right, I'm going to tell you the truth. When I was a young writer, I had a goal. I would make a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 10-year plan, and build that into like a 20-year plan. So I said, by the time I'm 30, I have to have a national grant. So that means within this 10 years, I have to build for the requirements. And usually you had to publish, I don't know how many poems to get an NEA grant. So I worked towards it. Okay, I've got to get an award in Chicago. Now I need an Illinois award. Okay, now I need a national award. Okay, now I'm going to get a New York publisher by the time I'm, such and such a year. I had everything planned out. So when I was younger, it was important to win those awards because, one, it validated to me that I was a real writer, especially when you weren't getting paid for your work. And it also gave me money, which money gave me time to finish a manuscript. It's essential. That's what it's all about, right? It's like the hokey pokey. That's what it's all about. So later on, when I got older, like now after 50, I know who I am, and I'm earned from my writing. So it's not that important because I already know who I am. And I've already got the books out there. So now the awards are more, I think, for the people who's giving it to me rather than for me. I think it's for them to say, look, we gave her an award. You see, we are multicultural. We are fair. We gave it to a woman. It's really for them rather more than for me. But, I like that I can get it and do great things like, donate to scholarships for women in the countryside here in Mexico, or use that money to help send my employees' children to school, or I can create scholarships for young writers. I can do all kinds of great things with that award now. in ways that when I was younger, I couldn't because I needed it to support myself.
Absolutely. I think it's a very powerful statement that you make there, though. You said when you were younger, you really did make almost like a roadmap for yourself. Hey, by this age, I need to hit this award. I need an award in Chicago. This is where I'm from. I need to get this grant by 30. I think a lot of people would be shocked to even hear that you had that kind of roadmap for success, especially for something like
I don't
writing.
know where I got that from. Later on, I found out that's what businesses do. I have no idea where I learned that. I just knew. I looked at what the requirements were to get an NEA, and I said, okay, I'm going to tick those off. I got to work towards that so that I can say, okay, yeah, I got this many publications. And the first time I applied for the NEA, I got it. I was shocked because people told me you had to apply every year, like, like applying for like doing your taxes. I didn't expect it. And I won 2 in both fiction and poetry. So that really floored me and made me feel like, when I was younger, it made me feel like, yeah, I'm doing this for the team. I get an NEA and other young women can see it's possible. Now, I don't apply for the grants. The awards I've gotten have come, as I said, without me asking for them. And it's more for the people that are giving it to me need the validation, I think. But I'm happy to get it because I translate that money to do some good deeds on the planet.
Absolutely. No, I think that's phenomenal to hear. You don't hear that many people say that, hey, they give awards to me because it makes them feel good. And I
It
use
makes
that
them
to
look good.
it
It
makes them
makes
look good.
That's right. You have to remember that. And you want to get to that level where they want to give you the awards, so
Yeah.
that's when you're young, you're working to get that award.
Yes,
But when
ma'am.
older, they just give them to you because you're so good. So you have to work really hard to make sure your work is fabulous. And what's the difference between good and fabulous? Time.
Time.
Time difference. Yes.
Time
So
makes a difference. So you know what? I think a lot of people, so when let's say, what would your advice be to a young poet, young writer just starting off, kind of have that business model, do you think, really kind of aim for a goal for your writing?
yeah, I would tell a young writer to don't expect to make any money from the writing and make sure you have a day job. And if you go into it with thinking like that, then you'll never be disappointed. And then if you do make some money, it's just like, sprinkles on top of dessert. So just go into it saying, this is I'm going to do as my work of service for the community I belong to that I love. How will I serve this community? Con puro amor y amor puro. How will I do that? And if you go in it with that idea, and how do I become the best? How do I learn to become the best? Well, I have to read everybody globally. And I have to also be open to critique from maestros, from master craftsmen. So I have to serve my apprenticeship. And don't be in a hurry to publish, because a lot of younger writers think that's how I become a writer, if I publish. It's easy to publish, and then you'll advertise that you're a half-ass writer. So why don't you take the time instead to invest in becoming a master craftsman, an apprentice with master crafts poets, and serve your apprenticeship. And the publishing is a lot of work. You do that later. Work on your craft. So one of the things that I think it's important is to invest in that period of apprenticeship. I also think it's important to have a community of your chosen family of poets, because your own family may want you to stop that nonsense. They may say, stop that, come out of that room. What are you doing? Why aren't you earning any money? Whatever it is that they want, you're not doing it. So you need your friends who know how many hours that piece of paper took. You need your family of other writers to support you, to cheer you, to connect you, uplift you. You just need it, because your own family doesn't know what you're doing or why. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. But I always give these 3 points to young people, and I'm going to give them to the poets out there. 1, earn your own money. And if you're earning your own money, then someone can't tell you to stop writing poetry. So if you earn your own money, you don't have to be fabulously wealthy, but you don't want to be homeless. So make sure you do what you can to make yourself self-sufficient. Number 2, and this is very important in this time in history, control your fertility. If you're a man or a woman, control your fertility, because these are dangerous times when people are creating laws that will decide for us our reproductive future. So it's very important you can get steered off your brilliant career. And if you're LGBTQ, safe sex, you don't want to get a disease that will kill you. Okay, and then the last thing is remember that when you don't have a date or you don't have a friend or you're alone, that's sacred time the universe is giving you so you can nurture you. So think of solitude as being sacred. So I always say solitude is sacred. This is a gift the universe is giving you so you can serve your apprenticeship.
Ooh, oh my goodness, Sandra. I love those 3 points. I really do. Wow, those are some gems that you're really dropping right there. And I know you're helping a lot of people listening right now with the pointers that you're giving. I really, really love that a lot. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Yeah. Especially young women, they feel they have to be in love. And I don't know about you, but when I was in love, I just invested all my energy in my beloved and not in me. So, just get to 30 and focus on you. And I tell the young women, don't, eyes on the prize, get to 30, because by 30, women become very empowered and start figuring out time's a wasting. What about me? Instead of focusing on pleasing dad or pleasing mom or pleasing him or pleasing her or pleasing my friends, it really becomes about, I'm 30 and I haven't done anything yet. What about me? So that's what happened to me. I was kind of, even though I had a plan, there was a lot of diffusion in my focus, and 30 helped me to wake up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's like it's like a lot of people I know in my age group, soon to be knocking down the door of 30 at 27 now. But you know what? You realize, wow, you know what? I'm still so young. I really like life has just begun, and like this adulthood is just a whole nother act of service, a whole nother job. So
But for women, every decade becomes, you become more and more powerful because you release the expectations of what others have for you. You start discovering what you want. You start discovering yourself and focusing on you with each decade. So I really felt the most dangerous decade for me was like, my 20s. When I was trying to fulfill everyone else's dream, but my own. I was so happy when I got to 30 and said, okay, I could have books or I can have children. I can't afford to have both. I'm a single woman. I'm never going to be able to have a partner that's going to support me. And if I want to have children, I'm going to have to move back to Chicago and go back to my father's house. And I worked so hard to get out of that house. I said, no way. So I chose to have books, and I've got 13 of them now. I surpassed my mom, who had 8 live births, 7 children survived from those births. And I've got 13 kids, and that's my family.
for sure, for sure. And you know what? Kind of perfect segue, so I feel like, you've definitely through your books, I mean, you've raised so many people. I mean, you've raised so many young girls, young boys through your work. Let's talk a little bit about your community work, what you've been doing. You've been instrumental in building a strong community in San Antonio among artists, writers through your work with the Macondo Foundation and the Alfredo Cisneros de Moro Foundation. Tell us a little bit about what your community work truly, truly means to you.
Well, once I started gaining grants and success, I realized, well, I know lots of other writers who are very good. What can I do so that I can get them to finish their work? Well, I can bring them together on my kitchen table and, critique their work and listen to them. We can listen to each other and help each other to get our work finished. A lot of writers, we're all writing on the side. We just need one listener, someone to take us seriously, just at least one, and to tell us whether what we're writing is any good or does it need work, and where does it need work? Like I say, writing is like cutting your own hair. You can only do so much on your own, and you need someone to help you with the back. And that's what I created on my kitchen table. Before it was called Macondo, it was just in my kitchen table. And, as I started earning and gaining more money, I said, oh, I can with a little money, I can bring such and such from California and pay for her airfare and find her a place to stay. So it started very grassroots. You know, we would say, okay, how much money do you need, Amanda? How much you need to come from California to come to San Antonio for a week? Okay, let's do the math. Okay, how about if I pitch in 500 and someone else pitches in, and we would get you there. That's how we did it. It was totally grassroots. Then it became non-for-profit. And, you know, later on it gave up its 501c3, but it was kind of, you know, poco a poco, little by little, that we said, what do we need? And how do I do it with the resources I have? I don't have children, so I can invest in other writers. And, you know, I had no idea I was going to be earning money from my pen. So what I tried to do was to, you know, spread it around. And of course, I don't work with Macondo anymore, except as the founder and as a volunteer. And my grant giving foundation closed shop when I moved to Mexico. But I think that we have to be very empowered about what we can do for each other. You know, when I had no money, I would go meet with my friend Beatriz Babiquian, a Chicago poet, and we'd sit in a coffee shop and give me your manuscript, here's mine. And we'd nurse a coffee and we'd edit each other's work. We could do tricks. And that's what you can do. If that's within your budget, do it. But work on finishing your work and making it better. And that, as I said, the difference between mediocrity and great is time.
Time, absolutely. And that really speaks to kind of your three main principles. It's you really do have to give yourself that sacred time to truly, truly become a master of your craft, because it does
You
take.
have to be humble too and lower your overhead. If sometimes I had to give up an apartment and go live at my brother's guest room and trade babysitting and use that, you know, lower your overhead and don't pay rent for a summer and finish a manuscript.
Yeah, I mean, it really
That
does.
takes humility.
Yeah, that's a really great point. It does take a lot of humbleness, humility, and really, like, I remember my parents used to always say, you have to put your ears to the floor. And by that, you know, you really do have to lower yourself to really be in your reality, be really where you are, be present in where you are, really put your ears to the floor, put your head to the floor, and really, really focus. I like that a lot. Absolutely, absolutely. For you, the kind of community work.
I would just, when I would go, I'm sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
No, you know, I was just going to ask, you know, the community work that you're focusing on now. I know you said that some of that has, with the Macondo Foundation, some of that has ended. Some of those things have ended. For you now, when you look at poets, what are you looking at now for? Is there like any type of criteria that you look at for like a poet that you're like, hey, I want to work with that person. I want to help them out. I want to give those kind of resources.
Well, you know, I'm always constantly editing my friends' manuscripts, and I'm retiring from all the blurb writing, you know, because it takes a lot of time. And I'm 67 now, so I've been doing it for a long time. So I'm not reading and blurbing anymore. Now I only read for pleasure, and I try to read younger writers and see who's out there and what are they doing. And but I'm no longer workshopping, except for this summer at Macondo. So sometimes I step in and guest teach a workshop at the Macondo workshop. If you apply and get in, you might get me, because I only step in on occasion and step back. I generally work one-on-one with one Macondo writer. I might read their manuscript and edit them. And it's, you know, just one, because I'm constantly working on other people's work throughout the year. I call it my sewing basket. It never empties out, and it's from my own volunteering. So don't send me anything, because I got to finish my own work too. And I think you know, the older you get, the more you realize there's never going to be a time when I can completely close the door. There's so much need right now, especially from our communities that are in pain, to bring attention to books, to get that work finished, to help out that writer, do whatever I can. I'm more working with Macondo writers, but even then I'm pulling away and trying to find my own time so I can finish new books like this one, which I just finished.
Yes. All right. Well, perfect segue. So Sandra is actually holding up her new poetry collection right now. So let's talk a bit about this new poetry collection that you have. It is your first in 28 years. Tell us the name, what shall we expect, and what does it mean for you to have this collection come out after a 28-year pause? Woman Without Shame poems. Woman Without Shame. Please tell us a
Yeah,
bit more.
listen, because I had to finish other works, prose, and plus because I don't know if my poems are ever done. Does anyone know? I just kind of wrote them and threw them under the bed for 28 years. I was always writing poetry, but my last book came out in the 90s, and there was the novel Caramelo, that I had to get done. And things happen in your life. My father died, my mother died, big traumas. I moved to another country. So I was always working on books that seemed to have priority in a way that poetry did not. But poetry always has priority. You always have to write it. If you're a poet, you can't ignore it, because you can't go to sleep unless you write it. But I never knew if it was finished. And I'm very lucky in that I have an agent, Stuart Bernstein, who reads my work and is my poetry listener. I also have a younger poet, and John Espinosa, and he's a California writer, John Olivares Espinosa, who personally is my personal editor, like my personal trainer. And then John Freeman, who's my editor at Knopf. And those three guys really said, this is done. I would keep things in storage for like 20 years, and they'd say, this is done. Oh, really? Done? I didn't know. So it was great to have someone, what I call poking under the bed with a broom, to bring out these poems. Otherwise, I would still be throwing them under the bed. And I'm very happy that I have such serious poetry listeners encouraging me. And we all need to be poetry listeners to one another. Otherwise, we'll never get anything done.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's a really amazing, that's an amazing kind of, now this reintroduction for yourself 28 years later, coming out with your poetry collection. Tell us a little bit about that title and what shall we expect from this new collection from you?
Well, my first book, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, was written with a lot of ghost censoring me, sitting on my shoulder, making me write things slant because I couldn't come out and say things. I was very ashamed about many things in my life. And so I decided never to publish a poem again, because writing poetry is the opposite of publishing it, I decided. Writing poetry is so personal, and it's coming out of, for me, it comes out of my uterus like a child, so I didn't want to hold up all that messy afterbirth. I felt that writing poetry was like June Jordan's title of her book, Things That I Do in the Dark. It was things so private that I couldn't risk reading it aloud or sharing it with anyone. So after I published my first book, I said, I'm never going to publish poetry again. I'm going to write it, but I'm not going to share it. And so for a long time, that's what I did. And that's how Loose Woman came out. They were loose poems, influenced very much by different writers and that I was interested in at that time, looser. And because I wasn't writing to publish, it was freer and uncensored. And I think that this one, Woman Without Shame, is like I finally got to an age where I could conquer most, maybe 98% of the shame I used to have when I was younger. Because the older you get, you don't give a damn what anybody else thinks. You don't give a damn. You just know who you are. That's one of the great things about getting older. And I felt like I could release these poems and I could write them without the self-censor, which is the worst censor of all. And I think as women, as people who come from maybe a working class house, or people who've been poor, or people who felt less than, we have a lot of shame that is built in that we aren't even aware that's there. And I wanted to dismiss all of that and write from some very brave place and say things that I might even be afraid to think, things too dangerous to publish in my lifetime. That's what I think when I write. What do I think that's so dangerous I cannot publish it in my lifetime? And that's the room in the house of the spirit for poetry.
Wow. That's very, very powerful. Writing about things that even you didn't even realize that you could write about, writing about things that are so dangerous. Wow, that's a very, very powerful words. So please tell us this amazing collection. When can we expect it to be released?
Well, it is out on September 13th.
Okay.
And I'll be touring starting in New York, and I'll be in DC and in the Bay Area, California, and in Los Angeles and Santa Cruz, Santa Fe, Phoenix, Tucson, Chicago, Miami. I'll be in North Carolina, Winston-Salem. I'll be in, and did I say DC? I did. I'm just bopping around like a flea all over the country. Well, not all over, but lots of it. And I might be coming to you. You can look on my website, and we will be posting, once we get the dates firmed up, we'll be posting where I will be.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, everyone. Y'all got that September 13th, and you heard it here first. Poet Speaks podcast. All right. Make sure you do that.
Yes.
All right. So Sandra, this has been such a great interview. So I have two final questions for you. I want to know the first one. When did you know you were a writer?
Oh, that is a good question. I think when I was in graduate school, they asked, what are you? And they meant, are you a playwright, a poet, or a fiction writer? And I didn't know I could have, dual citizenship or triple citizenship. I thought you only had one. And so I said, I'm a poet. And when I said it, I felt like giggling. It felt like saying, I'm a warlock, I'm a witch, I'm a magician, I'm a clown, which being a poet is all of the above. But I didn't know that at that time. I just felt like, oh my God, I said it out loud. I'm a poet. And, that's not the kind of thing that I was raised declaring, not in the neighborhood I grew up in. So I guess I would say when I was 21 and said it publicly, when I had to define who I was in my graduate program.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. I love that. 21. All right. So final question, Sandra, why do you need to get your words out?
Well, if I don't get my words out, I am mean and crazy, and I am depressed and violent, and I'm unhappy and cruel and small-minded. So if I don't take my poetry tablets, take 2, call me in the morning, I will be a beast and a bitch and a badass, and not in a good sense. So I have to write poetry so I can be my best self, because I can begin from being a beast or bitch or badass. That's where I begin. But poetry composts all of the negative and the shadow and the demons, and it composts it into light. It's an alchemy, taking darkness to light. And I know by the time I finish my poetry, I am a better human being. I understand myself. I'm kind to myself. It's my medicine, and it's my medicine for others too.
I love that. All right. It's her medicine. She has to do it. She has to do it. All right, Sandra, this has been an amazing, amazing interview. Thank you so much for being a guest. Before we finish up, let us know, what is the rest of 2022 looking like for you, for your writing, all your releases, and please tell us where we can come check out all of your work, all of your amazing events that you got going on. Where can we hook up with the link for the websites, all that good stuff?
You can look on my website. We're going to post it soon. The schedule's not set yet. It's still like Jell-O. We're just adding the little fruit and the marshmallows. So it's still in the fridge, not set, but it'll be on my website, Sandra Cisneros.com. And then also I have an Instagram account, the official Sandra Cisneros. Do not be fooled by imposters. And I'm working on House on Mungo Street, the opera right now with composer Derek Bermel, and we're going to rehearse that at Chautauqua in upstate New York in August. So we're almost done with the opera. It's really cool because I had to take the chapters and characters and flatten it and flesh them out to a linear story. And so I'm working on that right now. I'm teaching a workshop at Macondo this end of the month. I'm going to take some time out when I'm in New York in August to clear my head and see which of the several pots that I have on the fire that I'm going to work on next year, because I'm always, I'm doing artwork, and I'm working on poetry, and I'm working on prose, I'm working on essays, and I have so much stuff that I got to figure out which one is almost done, so that I finish it.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, Sandra, thank you so much. Everyone, Sandra's links, will put all of her information on the YouTube page in the description box of the Poet Speaks podcast on YouTube. So please check out all of her amazing work. She's doing some phenomenal, fabulous work. So Sandra, thank you so much for being a guest today on the Poet Speaks podcast.
Thank you. I'm so delighted. And I'm so, I watch a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, maybe too much, because it makes you so happy. And we need happiness in this time. So I'm going to close. What I learned from drag queens was how to blow kisses. You go like this.
For everyone watching, she's blowing kisses at the screen, blowing kisses at us. Well, thank you so much, Sandra. Amazing, amazing. Such an honor, privilege to be able to talk to you today. I really appreciate it. Everyone, again, please go check out Sandra's new poetry collection, her first in 28 years, Woman Without Shame. Please go check out Mrs. Cisneros' work, everybody. All right. Thank you so much again to Sandra. Everyone, this is the Poet Speaks podcast, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.